Hello, hello. Test, test, test. The audio looks good. Sorry, I'm gonna have to fuck with some stuff because my settings for OBS is set for recording for Bitcoin Magazine. So some of my stuff is you might hear an echo in the background. But let me know if can you guys hear the audio and all that stuff? It should be good. Yeah, so today the stream's gonna be a little different. I've got Josh Olszewicz. I think I pronounced your last name right. He's the 33K by July guy. He's someone that's been in the space for well before I was, and he's really popular with. He's introduced the Ichimoku cloud system and a lot of other more nuanced trading systems that you don't see a whole lot of people using anymore. A lot of people are more level-based traders. They look at the market through horizontals. The market kind of just goes through these fad sort of things, and the people who get good at them stick with their system, and this other people just kind of move on to whatever is the flavor of the day. But Josh is someone he's been a level-headed dude the entire time, and someone that I've personally respected his opinion. And he puts together really good in-depth analysis on Brave New Coin, which I have a link to his articles in my description. It should be in the description. If not, I'll add it afterward. No worries. But he also has a really great YouTube channel. What is your YouTube channel? Is it just your name, or is it Carpe Noctem?
Yeah, it's just YouTube / Carpe Noctem.
Okay, yeah, you guys should definitely, if you don't already, you should subscribe to his video content. Really good, just across the board. And he looks at the market through a couple of different lenses, not just through price activity, but through cyclical sort of things with. He just showed me an interesting Dogecoin chart, but he looks at stuff like YouTube searches, for example. He was someone that popularized that, someone who got popular with not only using, of course, the cloud trading systems, but looking at metrics like hash power and stuff like that. So a lot of different angles, a lot of different takes, not just from a technical standpoint, but also a fundamental standpoint. If you guys were in an audience, I would say give him a round of applause. So I'll just give my lone round of applause. And basically what I wanted to do is just have the stream not be a debate, because I think debating markets is probably one of the most dumb things you could probably do. It's really counterproductive. But he's got, if you haven't watched his video already, I posted it on Twitter earlier today, I believe. Check it out. He's got a lot of macro bearish charts that are quite alarming. So what I'd like to do is just rather than me describe his position on the market for him, I'll just have him basically present how you view the state of the current market. Do you think that we're in a position for a macro pullback? How do you view personally the health of the market at the moment?
Yeah, man, sure. Thanks for having me on. So obviously we went up, what was it, 160% or something last quarter?
Yeah, something crazy like that, yeah.
Yeah, so that was kind of, it's unexpected for me in a few ways, but it is what it is. That's cool. It went up. But as we sit now, it's kind of there's a massive decision tree for me right now as far as are we bullish or bearish? Low time frames have definitely reset and are bearish for me as far as Bitcoin's concerned.
What do you define as a low time frame? Like a 4 hour or a daily chart, or what is your time frame of choice?
Sure, yeah. So I prefer the daily, but it kind of depends on the market. Since April, the 4 hour has been really good on Bitcoin as far as cloud's concerned. So the 4 hour cloud right now is bearish, which is good if you're looking for a reentry, a long reentry, if you've missed whatever and you're looking to get back in, because any breakout on the 4 hour now should be good, just like the last one was a few days ago. So that's as bearishly bullish as I can be. But the higher time frames, like the pitchfork likes 88, we kind of hit
Yeah,
What do we hit?
let me pull that up. So you're talking about like the macro one they have going back to like 2016, I believe, something like that. Like
Yeah, back to like 2015. That one, just like the median of that one, likes 88. I mean, we kind of hit 9 already.
he's talking about this chart right here that he has available in his video as well. But he's talking about this pitchfork that anchored basically on the low of the 2015 accumulation trading range, and governed much of the trending market before it just got like hectically retail parabolic right around 2450, 3K ish. So when he talks about his pitchfork, he's talking about this guy right here. I don't know if you can see the stream from wherever you are, but I pulled up your OG pitchfork.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, so just that median line. The fact that we stayed within the pitchfork, arguably on the bottom and arguably on the top, a couple days ago, tells me that we're probably going to hit the median line sometime soon. We usually do, just like we did in 2016, 2017. We went up and down, but we just essentially stayed within the middle of that range there.
Where do you? So I don't, because this is a non-interactive chart. Where do you have your current median price? Because from my perspective, it looks like we hit it this morning at like
so we
9K.
came really close. Let me just pull it up. It's around 88, 89.
Okay, so like right around this previous range, like right here at the swing high of our last range. Like he's referring to this set of values right here.
Yeah, basically, and it looks a little different depending on the exchange.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of the problem.
But yeah, So I mean, we kind of hit the level. I don't know. I tweeted out something about 8800 at like 11:26 a.m. yesterday, and then like by 11:41 we were breaking down, and we just kept going. So yeah, that's been interesting. But yeah, I like the pitchfork for that, at least in the near term.
Yeah, and it also should be noted that you like to use a modified cloud settings. Can you just like touch on that a little bit so people can understand, like when he says the cloud, you're not specifically referring to like the default settings, which would be something like this that I have, or that I'm pulling up here in a second, where you can see that we're like just now touching the Kumo, the cloud itself. You actually use a set of modified settings. Can you explain like why you like to use the modified settings for people so they can change their, pick their personal preference whenever they're using the cloud?
Yeah, so for any indicator or system or whatever, it's generally better to have the largest data capture you can without like getting too big. It's like using a microscope. If you want to see certain things on a cell, you can only do that at certain power of the microscope.
Right.
But if you kind of want to see the whole petri dish, you're zoomed out, right? You can kind of get a better picture. So for me, I find that increasing the indicators, so basically doubling all the settings, is the most important thing you can do for any trading system, indicator, whatever, just because it helps reduce the noise. It means when you're looking at the 4 hour, you're actually looking at the 8 hour settings on the indicator. So that, I think that gets lost in the settings for a lot of people because they just see the settings and they're like, these aren't default. These aren't what anybody else uses.
Right.
That's the biggest thing, really. The second thing is this changing the values themselves to sort of mimic the 24/7 versus the 5 day a week trading cycle.
Sure.
Some people who are traditionalists get angry at that, but whatever, it's worked for me. So, it is what it is.
Yeah,
But,
I personally liken it to, it's like someone who has their preference of like moving averages. Like people will be like, the 250 EMA is like the gold standard, and someone's like, well, I like to use blah blah blah. It's like, you figure out what system works for you. You trade on a very high time frame when you look at the health of the market. So that makes perfect sense to me. Why you would alter your settings to reduce the noise, get a more clear, stronger entry and exit signal. Have you found any like downsides to using such a high time frame? Because not such a high time frame, but such a zoomed out settings. Because when we look back at the, whatever you want to call it, the parabolic blow off of 2018/20 end of 2017, the signals were a little bit more delayed in terms of like flagging trend reversal, flagging weakness in the trend. Do you find that to be like, how do you compensate for that, I guess?
Sure, yeah. So if the market's moving quicker, I generally move the time frame down to the 12-hour. I usually don't go past that. I'll do like we're looking at the 4-hour if we're moving super quick, but and it's subjective. It gets a little murky. It's not like perfect.
Sure.
But you can generally tell. You can feel it in your loins when the market's moving super quick. So yeah, like the other part of that is when you do see a signal on the daily with the doubled settings, you can be pretty confident that like the trend is over. Like we had that back at whatever it was, 13K in January 2018 when that rolled over.
Yeah.
I was pretty sure that was it, because we were below the cloud or whatever happened.
Right. I see what you're saying. So for those who don't know what he's talking about like, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're talking about like when it penetrated the cloud, retested it, and it was just like the end all be all of denied signals when it rejected the key unit there.
Right. So yeah. So the first thing is getting in below the cloud, and then the second is rejecting the key. So I explain all that like that because then if we look at today's cloud and today's setup on how it looks in the market structure, it's pretty close to that. So we're kind of like ranging in a relatively triangular, rectangular, whatever. We're going to get a TK cross bearish pretty soon. It's a long close signal on the daily. So, and all that is good if you're looking for a reset to go long, which is generally what everybody's looking for anyway, I think. And as long as we're above the cloud, we're bullish, but there's nothing imminent currently on that chart that's telling me I should be long here.
Yeah, just kind of raising your eyebrows and perking your ears and saying, as John Bollinger says, it's quote unquote time to pay attention, and start to have a possible exit plan or re-entry plan or entry plan if you haven't already been participating in the market. Do you find anything in this current trend, whether and when I say trend, I don't mean just Bitcoin specifically, I mean the crypto market as a whole, that is immediately alarming? Because for anyone that's been holding altcoins, they've just been sorely disappointed for the last 7 months as Bitcoin has just blown them to smithereens in terms of performance. I mean, there have been a few outliers. Litecoin had its day in the sun, Neo had its day in the sun, Ether had like its 5 minutes of fame. But other than that, altcoins have been fairly disappointing. And as someone who looks at the view of like the entire macro market, what does that say to you personally? Like, I have my personal views on it, but I'm just curious to hear your take on that and how you view like the health of the overall crypto market.
Yeah, so for me personally, I focus on like the top 10 or 20 as far as like charts and entries and things that I play in general, just because it's hard to sort of buy stuff less than that, like with size, just because you end up moving the book, and it's just it's hard to do what you want to do. So that's another part of this whole thing is liquidity begets liquidity. The bigger the market cap, the easier it is to buy stuff at a really large size. So I think we saw a lot of that on the run up for Bitcoin over the past 3 months versus altcoins that kind of just didn't do anything. And then when you look at ETH, ETH specifically has had sort of a reversal as far as the ICO boom has gone to a bust. ICOs have moved to IEOs, which are generally off of Ethereum and on something else. Any project holding large amounts of Ethereum has essentially just kept selling, so that the outflows have been greater than the inflows. Mm-hmm. The Maker DAO thing has sort of peaked at like 2%. It's at like 1.4% now. So there's just all these things, and they're just starting to add up for ETH. So, if anything, I thought ETH would perform much better than it did over the past 3 months.
Yeah, me too.
But I think those are at least some of the reasons why it hasn't. But as far as alts in general, I mean, yeah, like we were talking about before, like just They all look really bad. EOS especially, just because I did an article yesterday on it. But they all just look like they're in a bear market. They're all below the 200 moving average on the daily. So it's like, okay, well, I guess that was it. Like.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just you were showing the cloud for EOS, but
yeah,
it's below the cloud too. So it's just,
market.
No matter how you look at alts, for the most part, they just don't look good at all. And there was some stat like six of all the alts in existence have outperformed Bitcoin in the past year or something like that.
What, at various points in time, or just across the board?
No, just across the board. Like as we sit today, there's only 6 alts that are like up in their BTC pair over the past.
I'd be curious to see how that figure stacks up given the devastating pullback over the last few days, because even Litecoin, which was the shining hope for the altcoins, it just got like Litecoin and like BAT probably would be my guess. I without even looking at the figures, but like BAT had like a really good run and it was consolidating for a while, and even that just broke down over the last few days. But something that we were talking about before we started streaming was the view of the crypto market from the total market cap, which includes all cryptocurrencies, and then the view of the altcoin market cap, which is obviously the market cap without Bitcoin in it. So I don't know what the delay is like, so I might be talking and the delay might be significant or insignificant. I'm not sure, but I'm going to pull up the total crypto market cap, which includes all cryptocurrencies, and I'd be curious to hear how you feel about my current take that I have here. So the way I see it, if we look at just from like a horizontal standpoint, when we look at the monthly level, we have 2 major swings, and that's really it. The swings being the 2018 markdown period. There was a swing down right here, and then there was like a swing high here. And we can see that on our current rally, we tagged this swing high like perfectly, almost to the pixel. And we're currently on the way down to retest the support of this guy. This guy is the swing high that marked the last bounce. When we look at the weekly, we can see a little bit more resolution on it. But it marked the last bounce before we kind of just like had our capitulation, if that's what you want to call it, when the bottom just fell out. The 6K Bitcoin bottom fell out. Alt started just pouring into USD, and then we found our local bottom. But we have a really well-defined preliminary level of support, and obviously overhead resistance at logical points. And for me, this is a bit of a make or break period for the crypto market. I know that just peripherally looking through the crypto Twitter sphere, I'm like one of the only few people, and saying the word few is like very generous, that is still leaning in the bull camp at the moment. And when I say bull camp, I mean immediately bullish. Not like, is crypto dead or is it not? I mean like, whether or not this current level of support on Bitcoin is going to give way or not. And I'm of the opinion, because so much of the health of the crypto market since the beginning of December, basically, I guess you can call that the bottom, it has been dominated by Bitcoin. There's just no question about it. And for Bitcoin to have a harsh pullback right now, given the level of dominance it has in the market, it's just going to devastate alts. So with that in mind, I find it very hard to believe, personally, that given our current market structure with our horizontals, and I can pull up the standard cloud default settings, because that's my personal settings of choice. I'll change the doubled settings that you like to use, and we'll take a look at that too.
How dare you? I'm right here.
Right in front of you. When we look at the default settings, we can see, it's trending perfectly like we would want to see a healthy bull market or at least the beginning of a bull market. Like obviously, the true mark of a bull market is going to be the breakout of the cloud, with the Kumo, or with the lagging span trending above the price. Like all of these things should be trending through the cloud. So we're like at the tipping point of the true bull market breakout, and I find it to be really interesting that these trending indicators, like the weekly cloud, for example, they're all lining up with a strong level of support right as Bitcoin's on the cusp of potentially breaking its own support. And if we just use standard, like Adam and Eve double top price projections, that would lead to something like, what, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's like a 5K move to the downside, something like that, right? I'll measure real quick. It's 14K to...
Yeah, that's something I forgot to do in the video, is actually measure the double top. It's not pretty, whatever, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's $4,300.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that would mean a retest of essentially, a retracement of essentially everything that we built up for the past 7 months, which isn't out of the question. Don't get me wrong. But I'm just not sold on this layer, or of this current price range being the top, given the state of the total market cap, and given the price target of a potential pullback with this Adam and Eve double top, which would be a price target of like 5K or something like that. And just one more thing before I get your response here is, when we look at the altcoin market cap, this is the chart that I've been posting in my little weekly reports that I've been putting out. Similar to the total market cap, we see a very well-defined resistance level. It's outlined by the swing low here, and we've seen 2 bearish retests, which is just a retest from the bottom, where it pokes the bottom, and we got a nice little penetration, but it got immediately rejected. And currently, it's sitting like to the pixel on support. Unfortunately, when we look at the cloud settings on the default, it looks like absolute shit, and which means that if I go ahead and double it, it's gonna look like double shit.
Yeah.
It's gonna look even worse. So
yeah, but that's okay as long as we stay in the cloud. Everything's gravy, baby. It's just sideways chop. What matters the most is, like you said, when we're above or below.
Yeah,
that's when it's game on, like Donkey Kong. Definitely.
Yeah, and right now it's testing like a collapse of the actual cloud itself, which is, for those who don't know, it's just this red blob that's just sitting on my screen here. And to me, this looks like, if ever there was a time for an argument for capitulation across alts, it's right now. Like I couldn't remember. I was trying to think about it, and I could not remember a single time when Bitcoin was at like such a huge markup price. It's still up like 3x what it was 6 months ago, and people are capitulating, like publicly capitulating, like, I'm out of the market, like I'm dumping my altcoins, I give up. And I've never seen such an overwhelmingly bearish sentiment when the price hasn't even made a firm move out of its current range. So I'm curious about 3 things. Like, how do you view the current price structure of our range? Because basically we're at this, you could call our current double top, this Adam and Eve sort of bro here. I'll outline it for you guys who don't know. Here's the Adam, here's the Eve, and there's this neckline. And right now we're getting this throwback / neck retest. And how do you view the consequences of this potential breakdown, and how it would affect the total health of the crypto market? Because if that goes down, that means total market cap is going to be devastated, because it's predominantly Bitcoin. And if we look at the crypto market, the altcoin market cap, well, then that shit is just toast. It's going to be wrecked for quite some time, I'm of the opinion. So what are your thoughts on all of that shit that I just rambled on about?
I mean, I mostly agree with you. If you look at all the MCAPs, market caps together over the past couple of days, it'll show you this pretty clearly, as far as, when Bitcoin pulls back slightly, 12% or whatever it is, everything else pulls back like 20%.
Yeah.
It's just, so yes, I think if Bitcoin goes to 88 or lower, it's going to get ugly for alts, most definitely. We've already had like an $800 bounce today off the bottom for Bitcoin, so that's pretty good, definitely. Another thing I'm paying attention to is the CME Futures Dates. So the next rollover is on the 26th.
Yeah, let me pull that up because that's also a nice piece of a data. So for those who don't know, CME futures, they have varying expiration dates, and here are all the cyclical closing dates, and we're kind of at the approaching one of the closes. And the idea is that if you're some dude, big dick guy with a bunch of money, you have vested interest in pushing the market in a given direction, and you can clearly see that at the open and close, well, for the most part, there's like a general trend between the open and the closing period of these contract dates. And right now we're coming up on the July 26th close, which is in 9 days or whatever, and we can see a clear uptrend between the opening period, which was April 29th, and the closing period, which is July 26th. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to clarify to the layman.
Yeah, no, that was good. Yeah, so it depends how we look on the 26th, I think, for me, or even the 24th or 25th, because if you look at the previous trends from like June 3rd to July 1st, we started to roll over a couple days before July 1st or June 28th. It was like June 26th or something.
Mm-hmm.
So like a few days before the 26th, we should start to see some clarity as far as is this a bottom or is this going to be just more down? So that's definitely something I'll be watching. But like right now, I'm certainly more bearish than I am bullish, but that doesn't mean if we start flipping up on some lower time frames that we can't just go again. But another thing to pay attention to is just like the average daily range and volatility from like 10K to 13K.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Typically there's just more volatility at tops and bottoms. There's a bigger range at the top and bottom. There's all sorts of euphoria, FOMO, whatever. It's just looking at the daily candles. It's just like green, red, green, red, green, red.
Yeah, and they're all like overlapping bars back to back.
Yeah. So that's another thing to consider as far as like maybe it's time to just chill out for a little while we regather our strength and make a decision one way or the other,
Yeah, I kind of disagree with you a little bit about the volatility aspect of it, just because, numbers wise, it's, like for example, our previous range, it started out incredibly volatile. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about like the baseline at 6,700, where it swung as high as 9,100. And it kind of like had this crazy volatility, and then it chilled out, and of course just went parabolic, which was ridiculous in and of itself. But when we look at the average volatility, it's not terribly different. Like if we take the extremes, for example, it's not terribly different from our prior range, and then our current one. It's like it's a little bit more. It's like 4% or whatever, which isn't terribly exciting. What I find to be really interesting, though, is the level at which we topped, and I'm curious to get your take on this here too. Is when we look at the level that we topped, it was this 10.38, whatever, if you want to get super specific about it. But it's actually the low of our distribution range back in early 2018, late 2017. If you follow my little blue bar here that I have going across, this is the breakdown period of our prior range here. Oops, there's a big circle. This guy right here. We can see that there's this definitive breakdown of the range where we broke down. We just never revisited these highs, and everyone who bought up here, if you didn't sell before this breakdown, you're still underwater. So I think it's really interesting that we topped right at this, literally like to the dollar. Actually, not literally. I shouldn't say literally. I hate when people say that. It's basically to the dollar. This breakdown level, and I think what ended up happening was we came up and we tested this level, and there was just so many people that were underwater for the last year and a half that they were just like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. And of course, no one wants to buy a top. And so we're seeing this crazy volatility. But if I'm using, I'm not sure how much of like trading range or Wyckoffean analysis you keep up with, we're starting to see signs of supply absorption with our current range, and it coincides very interestingly. I was talking to Josh about this before we started. It coincides with this closure of this massive, possibly the largest short ever. Let me get my chart here. So for those who don't know, there is this disgusting, humongous short that closed. It was from 29K to, it was basically 60% of all open short interest on Bitfinex total closed in a span of like 5 minutes. And what's interesting is they chose to settle the short rather than, close it. And we were talking about this, but something that I'd like to get your take on is the idea of this short. I'm trying to find a chart that I don't have like just marked up like crazy. Let me get a better chart. Sorry.
Yeah, real quick, I think a lot of miners also hedge on Bitfinex, so that's definitely a possibility as far as short hedge, like we were talking.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even think about that. So when we look at the oh, nice. Okay, I still have my bar on here. Thank God. Okay, so when we look at this green bar right here, this marks the beginning of a short hedge, basically a massive short position that never closed. So I'm going to go ahead and outline this little rectangle here. And we can see here that there's a very definitive level that the short interest never dipped below. And it's a pretty sizable amount of shorts. So we can see it.
We can speculate that it's the same short that entire time, but it's hard to say with certainty that it is.
Oh, for sure. I'm just giving the conspiracy theory side of myself some attention here. So when we look at this massive short position, it's a very definitive line, like very clearly built right at this price level. And every time the market swung above this level, the short position built. It was added above this price level right here, this 8.6K. And we can see that as we broke above it, that's when we started to see this short hedge close. So, however you want to see the top of this short hedge being built, you can say like maybe the bulk of the short position was accumulated by this price level. When we scroll over and we look at the price level, it's quite literally the exact same price that the short closed. So my personal speculation is that a lot of people are looking at this as like a very bearish thing to do. Like, first of all, why would you close a short at the top of a trend that you held for a year and a half? Like that doesn't make logical sense. A. B, it could be someone that's just like, they see that, that the market's going to pull back. And so rather than keeping their short hedge, they're like, I just want to get the fuck out of here. And they're selling their Bitcoin. Or my personal speculation is that it's actually defining the bottom of a reaccumulation trading range, and everything above this, whoever, we can call it the miners, whatever you want to call it, the collective group of people. Everything above this was noise for them, right? Everything above this it didn't matter. Ultimately, the price was going to push back above their hedge price, and now we see this massive reaccumulation trading range. And it seems to me that the bullish case for this is that they're reaccumulating to push the market back up again. And that's where we're going to see the shift of capital from Bitcoin into the alts. And in my opinion, it's either this or crypto just fucking dies. If I'm being quite honest, like I think that there's this mass extinction event where if Bitcoin pulls back from here and it pulls back to this 5K level, I think there are alts that, people like Tone Vase are like, this scam coin's going to go to zero. And like, everyone's like, yeah, right. Like, fuck you. I'm making a bunch of money on this. It's either that actually happens, like we pull back and that actually happens, or this is the beginning of the actual macro uptrend, and we're seeing a larger accumulation here, which makes sense to me from both, a cloud standpoint, an EMA standpoint, a long to short ratio standpoint, and both just like a horizontal standpoint with like the total market cap and altcoin market cap positioning, because it's either that, in my opinion, or like I said, it's just like the bubbles popped, so to speak. Did you end up watching that debate with Arthur Hayes?
No, I didn't. I saw bits and pieces, but I didn't watch the whole thing.
Dude, you gotta watch it. It's really good.
Okay.
I kind of think Arthur's like kind of a prick, but like if I'm being objective, he just got his ass handed to him, and I'm a believer in crypto. But anyway, I was just curious what your thoughts were on this, on the idea that we're actually just going to trend sideways from here instead of seeing a pullback, given the state of the total market cap, the altcoin market cap, and this sort of positioning with the long short closure, because you had a little bit more of a bearish take on the long to short ratio.
Yeah, so if we're at a local bottom and we're seeing a bunch of shorts tick up to like all-time highs, then I can say with a lot more confidence than I am now that like, okay, this is probably a local bottom, because generally people are bad at trading, and a lot of, if you look at all the other all-time highs in shorts, it was the bottom of the range basically. So there's that. And as far as alts are concerned, I mean, a lot of them should go to zero. We all, most of us know that. I think the big thing is we as a community underestimate the U.S. influence on alts, on crypto volume in general. So when we're seeing all these delistings happen, when we're seeing like Binance kick off U.S. people, Bittrex schism between like international and U.S., Polo, same thing. We're seeing all this stuff happen that's just sort of like chipping away at the U.S. trader mentality or volume or whatever. I think that's super bearish long term. I don't think the Binance US ever launches, honestly. So that's even even more bearish. I mean, and we'll see what it's like 90 days from the day they said they were going to kick everybody off. But I just don't know how you can be bullish alts that aren't listed on US exchanges for that reason.
No, I'm right there with you on that point. I was holding a couple of bags like Quantum and stuff like that, and I've been slowly, like, as we're approaching this date, I'm slowly starting to, take profits or take the losses on them, because you're basically just going to be bricked. I mean, like, what are you going to do if you're holding them? You're not going to have access to an exchange that's gonna allow you to trade it for sure.
I mean, the regulatory risk is just so big right now for alts. I think that's scaring a lot of people, definitely, especially in the U.S. I mean, elsewhere it's less of a deal, but I think a majority of the volume comes from the U.S. for sure.
Yeah, no, I totally agree on that point.
I sent you that 1 year BTC return for altcoins on Discord. I don't know if you can pull that up.
Oh,
but
nice. Yeah,
yeah, so basically it was like Chainlink was 600%, and then everything else was 100 or less. And
what the fuck?
Yeah. So everything else has just not made it. And I was surprised even BNB wasn't a better return than that. I thought it did better.
Actually. Huh. Damn, Chainlink's 637%. What the fuck?
Yeah, it's got a recency bias just because it popped over the past month or so. But
it was the latest shill from Crypto Bitlord.
Yeah, it's got a weird 4chan bot community pushing it. I don't really understand, but yeah,
I don't know shit about it. I just know that there's, like you were saying, there's like it's being shilled like crazy on 4chan, and for whatever reason, people were collectively. I noticed it was like out of nowhere. It was people were shilling Tezos, and then just out of nowhere they stopped, and then it completely retraced. They're doing this little pump and dump thing, and then they did the same thing with LEO, the BNB equivalent to Bitfinex,
Mhm.
And then they did the same thing with Chainlink, which I would have to imagine is going to just see an epic retracement and leave a lot of people bag holding. So I definitely agree on the recency bias, because it's just the latest pump, and it pumped from like nothing. So of course
Yeah.
it's going to be up some stupid amount. But yeah, I mean, so what is your like, if you had to bet, what is your take on the long to short closure, and why, like, when you think about from like a game theory perspective, why would somebody close such a massive position at what is arguably a local top in the market? Everyone's saying it's a top. It's the most blatant double top known to man. It's just screaming, market top. Why would someone close such an epic short at a time when it seems like the market's going to turn in their favor?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody has a good answer other than, I mean, your theory is pretty good, other than the fact that it's hard to prove that they were holding that long. I'd say there's some solid evidence, but you can't prove it. And then we were talking about this too. I was talking with a few other people about this, that maybe they just wanted to get the hell off of Bitfinex, and they didn't want the money sitting there. If you look at the EOS Long-Short Ratio, same thing. Was that June 26th when that dropped off like that?
The exact same thing. Let me pull it up.
Yeah.
EOS. You talking about USD or BTC?
It was on the USD, the long short.
So shorts.
Basically, I'm thinking it's the same guy who claimed all that stuff.
It actually front ran it a little bit. There's like a day ahead.
Okay.
Interesting.
But yeah, so I don't know. It is weird. It's definitely weird.
Yeah, dude. Have you been tracking just the open long interest on some of these alts? They're at like 7-1 on so many alts right now. And if
it's also hard to think like any of that actually matters. It's like, yeah, they're 7-1, but if you try to like back test that with anything, it doesn't really match, like, line up at all. So
yeah, I saw someone was it I Am Nomad?
Yeah,
was that who it was? Yeah, someone put together like a correlation between all that stuff, and it really didn't seem to matter. I mean, it makes sense from like an immediacy standpoint of like trend and where a logical short squeeze or long squeeze is going to occur. Like, I get that. But when we're looking at something that's like 7-1 ratio of long to shorts that's been open for a fucking year, it's hard to find any sort of like immediately actionable strategy from that. It's I totally agree. It's like it's the same thing with like Tether, quote unquote minting 100 gajillion tethers have been minted, and it's like the market doesn't move, and then the one time it does, people are like, see, I told you, tether pumps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you end up watching some of the congressional hearing with Facebook at all?
Yeah, I saw bits and pieces of that too.
What was your take on that?
I mean, I was surprised at the level of education of the senators and or congressmen, whatever it was. They seemed pretty woke, crypto woke, based on the questions they were asking.
Yeah.
It's good for us that they are bearish, or they are trying to push out Facebook. I mean, that's another thing. I don't think it'll launch. I don't think Libra will ever launch in the U.S. at least.
Really?
No, I just think there's way too many people. It'd be a different story if their like public opinion wasn't so against them, but to have public opinion stacked against them, and like anybody in Congress just doesn't like big tech right now. I don't know. I just don't see it happening.
Do you see it as like a regulatory issue? Is that why you're saying that?
Yeah, definitely regulatory, privacy. People are very concerned with that for sure.
There was a press briefing the other day, with Munchen. I always pronounce this dude's name wrong, but I pronounce it Munchen. He basically, everyone was expecting bearish regulatory drop down. I think it happened. The press briefing was on Monday, and everyone was expecting him to have a very harsh take on it. And I was actually surprised their basic take was like, as long as you comply with regulatory standards, like do what you want. I think everyone was expecting China bans Bitcoin 3.0 USA edition, and nothing terribly abysmal happened. But we did see a pullback on Bitcoin the exact same day. So it was like we saw people speculating that shit was going to happen, and then nothing happened. And then we hit our bottom, or our local bottom, and now we're kind of range bound. But
yeah, I'm really terrible at trading news, so that's why I don't trade like NFP on Forex or like earnings season on stocks. I just avoid all that stuff because I have no clue what's going on.
Dude, yeah.
So like I agree, but I agree though. Like the hearing, it was bullish for Bitcoin, crypto. The Mnuchin press briefing was bullish for Bitcoin, but the headlines after the fact, of course, were not bullish. They were definitely biased as far as like it's a threat to national security. It's used by white supremacists, like all this stuff.
Yeah, dude, I loved that immediate leap where it was like crypto, which is used by white supremacists, like specifically targeting white supremacist groups as being like beneficiaries of this, this new technology. It's like technology that is specifically geared for white supremacists. Meanwhile, it was like the best possible outcome. It was like they just said, we'll stay out of your shit as long as you just do what we say. It was nothing that was like, terribly authoritarian, no like overlord sort of like banning of Bitcoin or harsh regulation. But I do think that maybe there is a little bit of investor confidence maybe wavering, if not leaving the market, when we start to see stuff like, like you were saying, like Binance's and Bittrex are delisting stuff for U.S. customers, because it kind of takes away from the entire spirit of like why a lot of people got into crypto, I think, which is that they have control over the self-autonomy aspect of it. And when we start to see government bleed in, I'm wondering if a lot of the heavy speculation is starting to leave the market a little bit. And that's why the alts are starting to bleed, because we're starting to see larger interests, larger financial institutions take interest in Bitcoin specifically. And, you can argue like maybe Ethereum if they're like very tech savvy. Obviously Ripple, which doesn't fucking matter because their token has no bearing on like actual use.
Yeah.
But if you had to guess, and we'll go ahead and start to wrap this up a little bit, but if you had to guess, what is your 6 month to 12 month prognostication? Do you see that Bitcoin is going to pull back and we see like a bear market? Do you think we're going to trend sideways? And where do you see alts? Because I think most people that are quote unquote trading Bitcoin, I think more people are exposed to alts at a disproportionate level than would care to admit. And I think that has a lot to do with why there's such an overwhelming bearish sentiment across like crypto Twitter every time Bitcoin is like a minute pullback. Because like you said, Bitcoin pulls back 12%, alts pull back 20%. It's like regular on the clock, and they don't bounce back the same level that Bitcoin does. So just given the trend and the overall discussion we've had, like what is your general outlook for Q4, Q1 2020?
Yeah, so Q3 historically has generally been a down quarter for Bitcoin. So alts are whatever. The fact that Ethereum couldn't keep up remotely with Bitcoin was pretty bearish to me, like we sort of laid out earlier. But generally things do well leading into hard forks. So Ethereum's got a hard fork at the end of October that may get pushed back to January or whatever. It's got ETH 2.0 phase 0 coming in January. LTC's got halving, Bitcoin's got halving in May next year. There's a bunch of like stuff coming. Eos even has a hard fork coming in September 23rd. Eos Finex is coming July 26th. So there's a bunch of like little stuff for alts that could definitely push price up. Not like market wide, but based on, there's a hard fork coming, let's buy whatever. If you map out the hard forks for ETH and you look at how prices reacted, they've all sort of pushed up from there. But I think Bitcoin's going to be performing massively well in Q4. I think 30K by the end of the year. that's my target for Bitcoin. I'm less confident with alts. Certainly, I don't think I'm holding any right now. Actually, I sold a bunch of Monero a couple of weeks ago, but that was about it. As far as Bitcoin in the near term, though, like it'll be more clear towards the end of the month, because then we'll have a definitive, like, are we above the cloud on the daily, or are we in the cloud, or are we below the cloud? That's certainly the best barometer for me. And if we're above the cloud, getting ready to break down into the cloud, I can almost say with the 85% certainty that we're going to hit 88, 86 within the next, I don't know, month from that.
Yeah, no, so, I totally agree with that. Basically, where I'm at personally is, I think that I know this is like the biggest meme in crypto when people say crucial, like this price level is crucial, like must hold, crucial. Like people bastardize the word crucial just to an annoying extent, but I genuinely feel like this current price level is crucial in terms of like the outcome of the crypto market as a whole, not just Bitcoin. And if my immediate downside target, if this thing breaks down, is right on what you were saying. This $8,800, $8,500 range. There's like, if you're a levels trader, that's the first logical stop in terms of a weekly support that's been untested. There's a couple of swing highs in there. We've also, of course, got this massive reversal on the weekly. This shooting star doji garbage can of a candle sort of thing. And of course the monthly still is in thin air, but it could easily close a tweezer top, which in my opinion, again, is not going to bode well, because you get a monthly tweezer top, and let's check out the last time it did it. Oh yeah, that was parabolic blow off that led into a 1.5 year long bear market, or a year-long bear market rather, I should say. Obviously the conditions are considerably different. We didn't have 2 years of run up leading into the tweezer top, but we did have 4x return over a very short period of time, 5 months, and we saw very little to speak of from the alts. So unless Bitcoin is just going to go to like 95% market dominance, I think it's going to be really devastating. So I think we both have a very I think you're more immediately bearish than I am, and you're more long-term bullish than I am, which is kind of an interesting juxtaposition there. But if, in my opinion, if this level gives up, I'm going to be looking toward the crypto market caps, because if we give up this level, then I think we're going to see a mass exodus from alts, because people have just been capitulating left and right, and they're at all-time lows, and they just keep going lower and lower. And when I say all-time lows, I mean the BTC pairs, obviously, but they're just going lower and lower and lower and lower. And people have stopped spreading that meme of like limited downside, because they just see that it's like, no, dude, this shit can just keep cutting in half and then cutting in half and then cutting in half. And eventually it's just worth one fucking Satoshi, and you're left bag holding indefinitely. So I think that if Bitcoin breaks down from here, it's going to be pretty devastating for alts. I definitely don't have the same outlook for Bitcoin specifically, but in terms of like the health of the crypto market, and when I say health, I mean like when I view a quote unquote healthy market for crypto, I like to see Bitcoin obviously leading the way, and then as people gain more and more confidence in Bitcoin's strength, they start to bleed into more speculative assets like Ether, and then as Ether becomes more confident, then they start to get into the shit coins, and as shit coins become more popular, then they start to invest in like ICOs and all this other whatever the new I insert O whatever that flavor of the season is. It all starts with Bitcoin, and when I see Bitcoin rallying and no bleed over into other coins, that doesn't seem like a long-term healthy market. That seems more like I hate to say it because this sounds like really, really bearish, but it kind of seems more like an exit pump and a bull trap on a macro scale. But we'll have to play it by ear and watch. But if this level gives up, it's going to be a steep drop, and the price target for this double top, like I said, is fucking $5,000. There's just no two ways about it.
Yeah. So two things real quick. So
sure.
One thing we didn't really talk about, and I even haven't really considered much. There are a lot more stable coins now than there were previous years or whatever. So if you have BTC gains, you don't necessarily need to rotate into alts. You could just rotate into USDC if you don't like Tether, or Tether if you don't like USDC. There are plenty of options to do that.
Yeah, that's true.
And the second thing, back to that pitchfork. So if like 88 doesn't hold, then we just go back down to the bottom of the pitchfork or the bottom of that green range, whatever that is, 75 or something.
Yeah. Looks about that.
Yeah. So like that's also an option, but 88 is just like the high probability touch just based on the median of that. And then like I was saying in the video is, we can get a massive macro head and shoulders as well. And then it can be really doom and gloom.
Oh, you're talking about this? Oh, yeah. Bounce off the bottom of the previous range and make a right shoulder, and then the price target is quite literally zero.
Yeah. The targets get pretty low. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So that can get really ugly, but that's like a month out. So I think it's okay if you're like me and you're not in a like massive position to you think this is the bottom. I would much rather wait here and be more confident. 10 days from now, a month from now even, and just sit it out. Like if you sort of missed everything on the way up, I'm sorry for you, but yeah. I think most traders didn't miss all that stuff. So I think most people are just going to be happy sitting out for now.
Yeah, I definitely would not I'm not giving anyone financial advice, but if one were to look for an entry, I don't think this is the spot for you. This is it's a very high risk, I guess you could say high reward situation if you have proper risk management, which most people don't. But if the consequence of this breaking down is like, it ranges anywhere from like a minor pullback to like a devastating pullback that cuts your Bitcoin in half in value. So it's just like, just wait, because in hindsight, this is something that we've been joking about in my Discord, is that like in hindsight, it's going to be very fucking obvious. Like when you look at it, you're like, oh, of course this happened. Whether it goes up or goes down, it's going to be like, oh, of course that happened. And we're kind of in that awkward period of time where it's, people are on edge. You see people maybe flipping their bias around a lot. And this is the point in time where if you're an intraday trader or maybe even a swing trader, you're just getting chopped to shreds. And I think it's definitely, even if the market moves up, just be patient and wait for a stronger signal to enter the market, right? So, I guess a good closing statement to make would be, we've gone over a lot of the bear cases. So you obviously have a strong upside target of 30K. What would you like to see here with the current market structure that would make you flip your bias bullish on the immediate on the immediate market structure? What like price targets or what price objectives would you like to see accomplished, and what sort of structure would you like to see in the market that's going to make you flip your current bias?
Yeah, so the big thing for me is I'd like to see us go back to the 200 on the daily or the 20 SMA on the weekly, which is about like 72 to 75, somewhere in there, by the time we actually get there.
You're talking about the 200 EMA?
Yeah, 200, whatever that is. Yeah, so it's definitely low. I'm not denying.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
But like for me to go like full hog back into the market, that's what I want to see. I want to see us bounce off that median of the B bands on the weekly like we have previous. Like I want to see everything, like I was saying earlier, I want to see everything reset like it is now. Like the 4 hours resetting, it's it's bearish right now. It'll when it flips bullish, it should be good to go. To 12-hour, like all this stuff is resetting, and that's good. That's what you want to see if you want to get back in the market, in my opinion, anyway. So yeah, it's like let everything die, let everybody get super bearish at the bottom. Like
Yeah.
that's fine with me, Yeah, so that red line on the B bands there, that's where I think we're headed. And it'll push up. It'll probably take us a couple of weeks to get there, but I think that's where we're.
Yeah, I actually have a similar wish of the B bands midline. We can see here, if you guys are familiar with the B bands at all. It may not look like it when you're looking at it on the chart, but the actual BBW, which is the Bollinger Band Width Indicator, is curving down. The slope is negative, which means that volatility is quite. It's no longer forecasting upward volatility. It's forecasting either consolidation at best or downward volatility to reset to the equilibrium point, which in a bull market rarely stays below the midline for any length of time, and in a bear market rarely stays above it. So you can see here there's this nice trend of the midline of the B bands, and I'm just using standard settings here. The best case scenario I see for the current market structure is that we continue to consolidate sideways and the midline just meets and catches back up with us, which is not out of the question in my opinion, because the slope is the rise up has been very aggressive, and so the slope over the next like 3-4 weeks could easily meet up with us at the bottom of our trading range, and that's the most bullish case in my opinion. But
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, the level to watch is this. If you're looking for like a macro market structure breaking sort of reversal, it's going to be a drop and close below this B band's midline, and like you were saying, the daily 200 EMA, which is very similar value. It's the 7,300 ish, 7,200, depending on what your what day you're looking at the EMA, because obviously it changes. Yeah. But yeah, so really interesting takes. Thanks a lot for stopping by and giving your insight. I feel like you're one of the few people that doesn't just like bombard the Twitter sphere with your opinions 24/7, and when you post something, it's something that like you truly believe, and it's not just like clickbaity bullshit, which seems to be the new norm for crypto traders, which is kind of annoying, but
yeah, man, fuck clout, get money, man.
Yeah, exactly. You heard it here first, folks. Do you have any closing remarks before we close this thing out?
No, other than thanks for having me. It's good. I do appreciate all your stuff. I'd like to like every tweet of every person that I agree with, but I don't always get around to it. But you, for the most part, do really good stuff. So, and I don't look at the market from a Wyckoff lens as much as you do. So I appreciate that. You showing that frequently. So that's good.
Cool. Yeah, I appreciate the kind words. And guys, if you haven't already, subscribe to his YouTube channel. I'll post a link in the description. Check out his Brave New Coin articles. He puts out a lot of really in-depth, really thought out, unbiased stuff, in my opinion. And yeah, I think that's all. I don't really know how to close this thing out, so I'll just go ahead and end it. But you guys have a great rest of your night. It's like 11 o'clock my time, and I'm running out of steam. So I'll try to do it. I always say I'll try to do another stream soon, and then a month and a half later, I'm like, hey guys, I'm still a streamer. So keep an eye out the next month, the next trading range. The next time we form our next horizontal, I'll be poking my head back onto YouTube. But
well, we got to come back now at like the 26th or something and talk about it again.
Oh yeah, the CME close. Yeah. I mean, I'm down. It's definitely been a point of interest in terms of like market structure pivots. So that definitely is going to be something to keep an eye on. If you guys check out his last video. He's got a lot of really good charts in his description. So everything that you saw me pull up of his is available in his description if you want to look at it for yourself. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Go ahead, like, subscribe to the video, do what you got to do. You know, show your mom, make her proud of you. And yeah, you guys have a great rest of your night.